Hello, Selden. I'm really happy you're here today to share your story.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really excited. We've been trying to get this together for a few weeks, so
Exactly.
feels like it's the right time
Yeah,
for us
like,
to.
yeah, completely. And I guess it's the first time, in the French podcast, right?
On a what podcast?
In the French
Slash
podcast.
French. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I was trying to figure out. Yeah, it is my first time on a French podcast for sure.
Cool.
So
So,
exciting.
yeah, exactly. To begin, I would like to go back to when you first began having symptoms until you discovered you had lupus. So, can you bring us back to this period of time of your life?
Oh my God, yeah. So I actually started experiencing symptoms when I was like around 11 or 12 years old. So what happened was my body, now I understand autoimmune a lot better, and I work in the field. But when our body goes through like a big hormonal shift, we can have a flare up in symptoms. And so whatever's kind of existing in the body, it's kind of that perfect time where things get disrupted and things come out. And when I went through puberty was when I really started to experience horrible symptoms of fatigue and body aches and pains and brain fog and so much like confusion. When I think back on this time, it was like it was such a difficult time for me because not only was I going through just the normal phases of adolescence and becoming a woman, right? As our
Yeah.
body changes and so many things happen, but I was experiencing these horrible symptoms that everyone around me was telling me was normal. So I really existed in this place of like a lot of confusion, of like not understanding why it was so difficult for me to do simple basic things that seemingly everybody else did just fine, and like why I had such a hard time in school, and all these things. And what transpired from that was an addiction to stimulant medications. So my parents put me on, I was diagnosed as attention deficit and depressed. They didn't back then, I mean, this is the early 90s, so like they weren't testing kids for autoimmune at the time, and they weren't checking inflammation levels, I don't think. I mean, I think my mom took me to my pediatrician and he did a basic blood panel, but that's not gonna check or test for autoimmune, or like I would have to have gone to a specialty doctor. And again, nobody really believed me. Everybody just kind of kept calling me lazy, which
Uh,
for a kid is so hard, and and they, again, I always want to make sure I say, like, my parents did the best they could, right? Like, they didn't know, right? They were only dealing with what they had. So I don't blame them or anything. But and so what happened was I was put on stimulant medications when I was like 14, and then I developed, and I was already playing in street drugs, marijuana, and drinking a lot and partying with my friends because I was trying to numb and mask what was happening in my body, which was incredibly uncomfortable,
yeah.
like really, really uncomfortable. And because no one believed me, I was kind of shut down. Like I couldn't, I got to a point where I felt like I couldn't talk about it. And so, that started really an addiction that I lived in until I was like 35, until I got pregnant with my daughter, which we were just talking about. And then motherhood really changed things for me. I had a lot happen, obviously, in that 20-year stretch where, I got worse. I had a lot of trauma. My brother passed away actually from a heroin overdose. And I
Mm.
had, many, many things. So in a lot of ways, there were times where I was worse, right? I was like heavily and even more addiction when I was around 19. And then I had phases where I would kind of get better, again, still on stimulant medications. I could not function without them. I got to a point where like I could not function without, I mean, I took the gamut of all the things, Adderall and Ritalin, and I don't know if they even have all that stuff in France, but I think you guys know like what I'm
Yeah, or
talking
probably,
about.
you know, maybe in another name, but yeah, of course, it exists.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
stimulant,
of course. And
basically. And
like, just one
yeah.
question, like, what time were you diagnosed with lupus officially?
So then what happened was, this is so crazy. I didn't get diagnosed until I was 40. So what happened was, yeah, yeah. So I was living this way. I just thought I accepted the ADD label. I was like, oh, I have ADD. I must have a chemical imbalance and something. I was just born wrong, was like the story that I accepted, even though intuitively it never felt right. Like
Yeah,
that never felt right. But I just was like, oh, I guess this is how it is, right? Because when you are so deep in symptoms and addiction, you're so cut off from that higher self, right? You're so
yeah,
cut off from your intuition. And I was just surviving. I mean, I was just surviving for so long. And so what happened was I got pregnant with my daughter, and I really was like, this doesn't make sense to me. It was like a switch turned, and I was like, I am responsible for another human life now, and that really shifted things for me. I was like, I have to take this seriously and figure out what's wrong with me. And at that point, I kind of was like, had lost faith in doctors, actually, because I was like, I've been to a million doctors and they all say the same thing. So I'm just not going to go anymore, which is also kind of sad, right? Because we have this establishment that's supposed to be helping people, but really I just was gaslit by them as well. Like, oh, you're fine. And then once I had my daughter, I actually did go and get tested. I went and got just a physical, and the doctor was like, and then it became, oh, well, you're a new mom and that's why you're tired. Like all
yeah.
these excuses for
Oh,
being tired.
exactly.
I'm like,
Yeah, yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So then I had my son, and I was started my healing journey. I started like an elimination diet and started some things, but not, didn't fully understand yet. And then I had my son, and again that hormone shift, for whatever reason it was with my son, I got way worse, and I got neurological symptoms that were really, really scary. Memory and confusion, like memory lapses where I was like losing entire chunks of time, where like I didn't recall whole conversations I was having with people, and insomnia and anxiety to the point of panic attacks, body rashes all over myself, heart palpitations, hand and arm tingling and numbness, where like
Oh,
I literally couldn't feel
I
my
know those
hands and
ones. It's awful.
oh
I
my
hate those ones.
so scary. I remember standing in the hallway outside of my bedroom, and my husband at the time was like, I was crying, and I was like, my hands were out. I don't know if your viewers can see me, but my hands were out to the sides, and my feet were kind of apart, and I was like crying, and I was like, what is happening to my body? It was like these tingling sensations, but also numbness at the same time. It was so scary. I had emergency visits to the hospital and things, and it was just wild. And again, people around me were like, it might be in your head, Selden. It might all be in your head, like still telling me that it might be in my head. So then fast forward, I had my son when I was 37. When I was 40, well, I may have been 39, between 30 and somewhere between 39 and 40, my cousin, who's a PA, was like, I think you need to go to an endocrinologist. And no one had actually sent me to that specialty route before or recommended it. And I was like, yeah, maybe I should, after 30 something years of being sick, basically.
Yeah.
And so I went, and I actually did a lot of research online, to
Ooh, Dr.
seek out
Google. Ooh la la.
the doctor. I know. Well, I was searching for the right doctor, and I found this woman where all of the reviews were like, she listened to me. Like she actually sat and took her time and listened to what I was saying. And I was like, this is my doctor. And I waited a year to get in with her. Like a whole year. Isn't that crazy? But it was worth it because I went and I had a whole new experience with her. She actually listened. She actually believed me. She actually told me she can't get over how many women come into her office with my same story of like, I have been feeling horrible and no one really takes me seriously and no one really believes me. And anyway, she ran some tests, she found an inflammation marker, the ANA, anti-nuclear, gosh, I can't even remember what it is now. Because I don't pay attention to this stuff anymore. Anyway, it's an inflammation marker, the main one. And she sent me to a rheumatologist. And she knew I was very specific about who I wanted to see. And this doctor practiced medicine the same way she did. She really listened to me. She has a background in Indian. She's an Indian woman, and she understood Ayurveda. I actually had gone through an Ayurvedic training at the time, and she had a holistic sort of viewpoint, even though she practiced allopathic medicine. And she was incredible. And she tested me, and it was like flying. It was like red lights blaring of like lupus. It was like there was no mistaking it at all. It wasn't even like, you know, borderline. It was like very apparent. My C3s, my C4s, my ANA, there was like multiple markers that were showing that it was lupus. And, for me, like that diagnosis was really important because it validated how I was feeling.
Completely.
And like I needed to tell my family, like, this is happening. Like, I'm not making it up in my head. And now, not everybody has that experience. Like, I've met a lot of people who the diagnosis doesn't matter. Their family supported them. That didn't, that isn't the case for everybody. But for mine, it was important. And that was kind of the beginning of when I was like, it was kind of like, now I know what I'm healing. Like before it was like, I'm healing, but like, I don't really know what, and I don't really know how or why. And I didn't get it. And at that point, when I got the diagnosis, it was like pieces started to come together, and so I tried all of the autoimmune protocol diets. I tried AIP, I tried GAPS, I tried medical medium. Medical medium actually did a lot for me. I do love Anthony William, even though I don't think that veganism and plant-based is a healthy long-term diet for most people. It is a detox. It's a really intense detox diet. I mean, that's essentially what he's doing, is detoxing the body, right? With all those juices, and celery is a massive liver cleanser. And I think all of those years on all those prescription medications and things, I had a lot, and the street drugs. I was years on street drugs and so much alcohol, and so that diet, actually, I cleaned my system, I think, really for the first time. I just dumped so much heavy metals, so much toxins, so much stuff. I cleaned up my liver. And then I actually got to a point where I was like, my flares were not as often and they were not as bad, but I was still having them, And then I found the trauma healing and the nervous system work. And that I've been doing for about 3 years now. And that is what actually turned lupus around completely for me. That was like the last piece of what I needed to work with. And that has been like, all of it has been life-changing, but really, like, that work has been incredible, because that's also opened the gateway to like my own work and, how I want to help people and stuff too. So, and it's so deep, that work is so deep.
Yeah, it's kind of physiological, and at the same time is a bit like spiritual one. So yeah, I really do understand that. But like, before we just go into this, like, I just want to know, like, for the listeners maybe that just know a bit about lupus but not so much, what are the common symptoms? Because you talked about pain, about brain fog and everything, but what are the common symptoms?
So a lot of people get what they call the lupus rash. They call it like a butterfly rash that happens on the face. That is very typical of lupus. But honestly, Lena, like, all autoimmune is inflammation of the body, right? It's the body is like attacking. I'll say attacking, quote unquote, attacking like something, some sort of foreign. I don't buy into the body attacks itself. That is something I try to dismantle because I don't think the body would ever do that.
Completely.
And so, yeah, so the holistic perspective on this is that the body is like, is after something foreign that's happening in the body that doesn't understand what's going on. And there's something foreign or a pattern that's been disrupted that's causing inflammation, right?
Yeah.
So for lupus, I had systemic lupus. Now, lupus can actually go into the organs. So some people can have lupus in the liver, lupus in the spleen. Um, thank God I did not have that, because that actually is a little bit more serious, but it still can be healed, actually. But mine was systemic. So it almost feels like it's in the tissues of the body, right? It's like in the muscles, in the mitochondria of the body. Um, Body aches and pains are very typical. I would say the main symptom across the board that I hear, both with lupus, I would say lupus, fibromyalgia, and Lyme are very similar, those three things in
Mm.
symptoms. The chronic fatigue is the main thing. That's like across the board what almost everybody who has these suffers with, and probably like the first thing they notice. And then it's body aches, joint pain. So my knees and my hips were always hurting me. And I actually thought it was normal. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't until I went to that last doctor, because I had it since I was like 11 years old. So I just thought everyone walked around like that. And that I was just like, I don't know. It was just so crazy when I finally heard, like, you're not supposed to have joint pain unless you're like 80. Like, I was blown away by that. I was
Yeah.
like, wait, what? I'm walking around like this and I'm not supposed to be? Like, I don't have to be? And my doctor was like, no, you're not supposed to be. That blew me away. Um, so a lot of people, lupus, when it gets into the joints, the knuckles swell up, and actually usually a lot of people who have lupus also have rheumatoid arthritis, which is in those joints. And I think it's just those two things seem to go hand in hand. um, uh, Autoimmune begets autoimmune. So a lot of times when one person has one autoimmune condition, it's only a matter of time, because if they're not dealing with that toxic load and they're not dealing with the trauma and the nervous system stuff, then it just compacts, right? It
Yeah.
continues to accumulate in the body. And so then the inflammation then spreads. So for lupus, it's like rheumatoid arthritis, MS, cancer is like the trajectory of like what a lot of people end up having. But then you have like gut autoimmune stuff, like celiac is very associated with Hashimoto's and thyroid. So like a lot of people have that. So there's a progression for
Yeah,
sure
it's
that
always like that.
happens if it's not.
Sometimes, like when we have like diagnosis, like you think, okay, so I have this one autoimmune problem, but you think that that's
Yeah.
enough, like, but sometimes you can have multiple stuff because, yeah, it goes like, it's worse and worse and worse if you don't deal with those symptoms. Exactly. So,
That's
yeah,
right.
I think it's important to say and to speak about that.
Yeah, yeah, because a lot of it, and two, this is the allopathic way is just to put the medicine and deal with and mask that symptom. But the medicine is, most prescription medicines have a lot of aluminum in them, right? And heavy metals is a huge culprit to the body and to the autoimmune and inflammation and all the things. And so not only are you masking the symptoms and covering up where the root cause is, but you're now putting in even more toxic stuff in the body. So it's more stuff the body has to deal with. And then the symptoms get worse and worse. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
he's already tired.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely. But I was wondering something about
Yeah.
the fact that you've been like ill with the quotes like since you're like a young person and like do you think it was hereditary or something like that? Like is it genetic? Is it what has come from? Like
I
did
do. Yeah. Well, now that I understand the nervous system and I understand the impact of how that leads to chronic symptoms, when I look at the patterns of my parents and my lineage, there's a lot of dysregulation and dysfunction that happened on both sides, right? Like we all might have, right? But I think it just, however, I mean, I think we all, but how something manifests in your body, right? How a particular thing manifests in your body is always specific to you and what you might be having going on, right? And how you process or don't process things, how you're, it just, I mean, I definitely think that there is something to be said for like just each individual system and
Completely. Yeah.
how it takes things on, right?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
for me, for
And that's why I
example,
always
it
say,
it's sorry, it's always been like, for example, digestive issues and acne. That was the most important, and then joints problem. But for some other people, it will be, I don't know, like migraines or fatigue or whatever.
yeah.
Of course, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just wherever those toxins land and how you, like I said, how you either store it or how you process it, or, there's so, God only knows, like what all of the different variables that may give a person one symptom and another person another symptom, right? But I always say to my clients and in my teachings, it's like, you know, no two people are the same. Like there's not one protocol that's going to work for everyone,
Amen
right?
to that. And it's quite kind of
Yeah.
frustrating. I don't know if you have like I don't know, like an Instagram or something like that. But some people, like, they ask me like, how can I get better about this, and yeah, like it's very personal. Like, of course there are some
Yeah.
guidelines, but at the end of the day, it's very personal, and you have to try and see if it works for you.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, I meet people who, I got worse when I did keto and GAPS, and I got better when I did medical medium. That just shows right there, like my body needed to detox. Like I had to dump. It wasn't about nutrition necessarily. It
Yeah.
was about the detox that needed to happen for me. But I have met other people that are like, oh my God, I went carnivore and I got better. You know what I mean? Like medical medium made them worse and they needed, right? So it's just so different. But and this is definitely what I work with people. Sorry, am I freezing up a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit, but
Um,
don't worry. Like right now, it's okay. I will tell you if it continues.
okay. Yeah. So yeah, I do have an Instagram. It's my name, Selden_Beylouni, and I talk about all the different variables a lot. I have a YouTube channel as well, Selden Integrative Healing. And yeah, I mean, I definitely try to touch on all of the different ways in which we can heal and different things to try because as you know, even like with the trauma healing, it's like, we try things, we try to release activation, we try regulating, we try, we have to kind of play a little bit to find that thing that's going to work for us, and hopefully, we get on the right path. I mean, for a lot of people can go like, I mean, you hear this all the time, people going paleo or people just changing their diet or doing an elimination diet, and then they're better.
Yeah,
Like they don't have to do all the trauma stuff. And
completely.
that's like, I'm like, wow, that's incredible. But I think the trauma healing had to be a piece for me for this life because of my spiritual evolution and my spiritual growth and what I'm supposed to be doing here on the planet, If I had just changed my diet, would have not have been it wouldn't
So
have been
deep.
the yeah, exactly. It
Yeah.
wouldn't have been the evolution that I came here for,
And
right?
yeah,
So,
and I was wondering actually, like before you work on your trauma stuff, like and your inner problems and wounds, like what were your thoughts and beliefs about yourself and your illness and your life like?
oh my God, that's a really deep
Yeah,
question.
because I'm sure it's pretty different from now. I
Very
bet.
different, very different. Yeah. Um, there was no there was no trust. It was all fear, right? My thoughts were a loop, and they were a loop of fear-based, yeah, it was just a fear-based sort of stream of me questioning myself,
Yeah.
and being scared, really, it was like, it's like my inner child, right? It was like my inner child was running the show. Just this scared little girl trying to like figure out like why and all these things. And once I really started doing like big healing work and I understood my why, like I understood really why I'm here, that started to unravel. Because I was like, I could always come back to that. Like,
Yeah.
this process is really hard, and this healing road is so difficult, but like I'm here for something bigger, so I just have to go through it. I'm getting emotional, but yeah, it was a big, all of that, and that's what's incredible about the trauma healing work is your mind just changes. It just shifts, once
Yeah.
you start to heal. My
Yeah.
God, it's incredible.
And sometimes, you
Yeah.
don't even realize that because, like, you don't have the same consciousness, so you are not aware of something that is not in your system anymore. So you don't see yourself even changing, but it's out of your
Yeah.
awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. Sometimes I'll see pictures or something from a vacation or from a time like 2 years ago or even a year ago, really. And I'll be like, oh my God, I'll remember like what I was going through at the time. And I'll be like, oh my God, I'm not even that person anymore. Like I would not even be in that relationship or doing that thing or having that issue, or I would be dealing with it in a completely different way. How I parent has completely changed, Um,
I think
yeah,
you can
I mean,
see that
it's,
a bit physically too. I don't know about you, but when I see pictures of myself like 7 years ago, I'm like, I can see like the wounds and everything, like the as if
yeah,
there was a lot of
I,
weights inside in my
yeah,
shoulders. Like I'm not the
yes,
same. Like I don't know. I think I changed. Of course, like everyone is changing, but in a better way. And yeah, I don't know. Like it's not the same person anymore, and you can see that with some physical traits. I will say for
mhm.
some people at least.
Yeah. I think the eyes are not as clear, right? Like I did a post not that long ago where I showed a couple of pictures of me from like in my 30s, and my eyes are totally dissociated. Like you can see that my eyes are there's like there's not clarity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In
Mm.
my eyes. And people commented on that. They were like, wow, like, and I look older,
Yeah.
actually.
Mm.
I look
Completely.
younger now. I look older in pictures. Yeah.
But of course,
Crazy.
like you were like what you said earlier is really important. The fact of you living in fear, and I was the same. And sometimes I still have some patterns of fear, but I'm working on it. But like yeah, like all your cells were functioning with fear. Your mind was like fear was the god, like so you were always afraid of some stuff, hyper vigilant. So of course you
Yeah.
cannot be in full health. It makes sense.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, they just kind of feed each other, and my spirituality and my, building my intuition and learning how to surrender, and all of that even came before. I mean, layers of that kind of came before. They were kind of all intertwined, but with the trauma work, um, and I think not everybody understands this nervous system, the depth of like this nervous system and trauma stuff. But a lot of people are going through spiritual awakenings right now, right? So it's kind of like this natural process to be like, oh, I'm going to do breath work, I'm going to do meditation, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, right? So that was kind of me. I was trying all these things, It was like there were pieces that helped. There were parts of it that were helpful. There were things that I think moved and shifted, and realizations that I had along the way. But then when I got into that deep trauma stuff and really started to work with the body, that was really when everything clicked. It was like, oh my God, everything came together. It was like my spirituality, why I'm here, my purpose, my why, my health, all those things. And so, yeah, it's been quite a road. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so if you want, let's talk a bit about your traumas and everything, like the nervous system topic, because it was the missing piece of the puzzle, and I think it all began with a dream, right?
Mm.
Teaser.
I know. I'm like, wait, how do you know about that? Did
Be-
you hear that from another interview?
yeah, probably in YouTube.
I tell you?
I'm a
um,
psychic.
I know, right? Yes. So I started having some dreams of some experiences that I had when I was a little girl. I won't go into the details about them, but um, I now that I know more actually about the nervous system, I don't know that it was just that one thing. Uh, well, however, that actually was the doorway that opened to me doing this work. So I was working with a spiritual teacher at the time, Janet Raftis, who's one of my closest friends now. And at the time, she was doing energy work on me. And we discovered right when I started doing energy work and I started working more in the quantum field, and I started opening up my own intuition. I got Reiki certified, and that does open up that crown. And so I was receiving more information. I was also specifically asking because this was right at a time when I was like, I want to heal lupus. Like I want, like, this is my goal. Like now I know what it is. Now I've done all of this diet change and elimination and detox and all this stuff. Like I want to know like what it is. And I was praying hard, and asking for answers.
Mm.
And so right around that time when I sort of opened this, I'll call it a portal of my spirituality and my communication between my physical body and my spirit team and my higher self, I started to have dreams. I'm remembering some things that happened to me when I was a little kid. And from that point forward, I realized everything was connected to my childhood trauma.
So
And that was when I started working directly with my trauma
I know we won't speak
after that.
and go into details, but it was some abuse.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah,
But
and
now that I understand what abuse actually is, I don't I don't narrow it down to just these few instances. There were a few instances that I was remembering in the beginning of something specific, but now that I understand trauma, I don't know that lupus and my symptoms later had to do only with that, right? Yes, that was a big part of it, but I think there was different layers and different levels of abuse in my whole childhood, right? From a couple different people, right? And so, like, yes, there was different, I'll say there was different layers of abuse that happened
yeah,
throughout.
yeah, like with different intensity, and yeah, I guess that's always
Yeah.
about that. Like the glass of, the glass is full. It gets full, 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 and yeah, it's about layers and layers, and so I think like probably your nervous system was dysregulated because of the traumas of the abuse, but maybe because also of the addictions of the partying and
That's it.
the like all the, I don't know, the medication and everything, right?
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, everything, and I started dissociating. So when we first started talking, I was talking about how my symptoms started when I was 11 or 12. Actually, they go back even farther because I started dissociating
Mm.
and I started sort of that detachment stuff when I was 5, and that was when the abuses started happening. And so, I really became disconnected from my body when I was 5, which
Yeah.
is crazy because it wasn't for 40 years later that I learned, or longer, like that. I didn't even know what that meant, obviously. I didn't know that I was disconnected. I didn't know. I just knew I grew up from the age of 5, like having this label of like being spacey. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Completely.
then later they're like, oh, she's always been spacey, it's ADD, she was born with it, right? It was like even more confirming because it actually started when I was really young, that like this is just my personality, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Completely.
But
Yeah.
it wasn't at all. Yeah, but it wasn't at all. Like I don't think anyone who's met me as an adult would ever label me as spacey.
Mm.
Like I don't, my boyfriend, my friends, like if I told them that, like people who have met me in the last few years would not like use that word to describe me. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So it's interesting when you think about it, you live your whole life with a label and an idea of who you are.
Yeah, yeah.
And then all of a sudden you realize that that's not who I am at all, actually. That was just trauma based stuff, you know?
Yeah, and actually, and you know that, of course, like when you begin to work regarding your traumas and everything, like you can like becoming another person. Like you get closer
Totally.
to your true self, to your true authenticity, and that can be very like uncomfortable because you don't like at one point you don't know who you are anymore. So yeah, that's a phase, and it's a pretty intense one.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of my life I didn't know who. Only now am I discovering who I am, you know, and over the last few years, you
Mm,
know. It's like, yeah, I might have known things I like, things I don't like, but a lot of times, you know, especially when we have that early childhood trauma like that I had, um, we can adopt how we can adopt like what we think other people expect from us as our own thing, right?
yeah.
Like I think my whole life it was always about like how am I supposed to be to like make sure I don't, you know, make sure I stay safe essentially, right?
Yeah.
And
I know what you're saying. I was a people pleaser for like 30 years, and now I'm like, I want to think about me before. But it's like weird to
right.
think about myself before, you know? You have to get used to
Yeah.
that. But it's beautiful
Yeah.
because it's just like, yeah, a path towards self
Exactly.
authenticity. But like, yeah,
Right.
what daily practices did you incorporate regarding the nervous system and how it changed you and your system?
So I would say the most important thing that I do now is interception. So making sure I'm like really in my body, making sure I can actually like feel my body and feel the sensations that are happening in my body. And even now, before I go into any kind of meditation where I might be actually opening up my intuition. So a lot of times we can actually come out of our body. People use meditation to come out of their body further, right?
Yeah.
And so now I use the grounding of that orienting and that interoception to really feel the weight of my body and make sure I'm really grounded before I do any kind of like meditation practice.
Even like when we are talking to
Um,
each other, I'm sure you're grounded. Like I was feeling my feet too, like like my body, like always connected to it, and it's nice that yeah, we can do that now.
Yeah, totally. I know. And I've been moving around. I still move around a lot. You know, I still do like I have I always have activation going on. So I'm kind of always like moving a little bit. But yeah, I mean, just when I said that, I was like, oh, I need to really feel my body, feel my butt on the chair, feel my legs, feel my feet on the ground. I'm always barefoot in my house, you
Yeah.
know, so my feet are connected to the ground. And I walk barefoot out in my yard a lot too, just to make sure I'm connecting to the earth. But I would say, yeah, my practices, my nervous system practices, my spiritual practices have sort of woven together
As
now.
often,
So
yeah, yeah,
like,
it does.
yeah, like connecting to my body, connecting to the earth, connecting to my humans and my dog, right? Making sure I'm going slow enough that I'm present, you know,
Yeah,
especially like when my kids are here. You know, I often will just drop things just to be with them, right? Like if I have an expectation of how I want my day to go and my day doesn't pan out the way I wanted it to, and I have to go pick up my kids from school, I just drop everything. I don't try to like hustle and like do
yeah,
everything
so
anymore.
important. And
Yeah.
it's like I still have a bit trouble from time to time. Like it's always the density that is coming back from me from time to time. But because like
Yeah.
yeah, like so I have my podcast, I have some posts to write. I am writing some programs, so you're familiar with this kind of stuff. And I
Mhm.
also got a job, so it's a lot of stuff in my life, and I'm very perfectionist still. But like I really do
Yeah.
understand that health is about flexibility, not rigidity, because like
Totally.
it's not working. So I'm trying to not be fucking stubborn, if I can say, and just like, no, I want to finish before something. No, it's okay. You will finish tomorrow, and just respect yourself, because you just want to feel fine at the end of the day, and not finishing some post that 20% will read. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, totally. No, it's really important because first of all, like it always gets done. That's the thing. It always gets done. And if I wait, when I can actually sit and be present with something and give it the space that it deserves, it comes out better work than if I was like rushing to do it, you know?
yeah, because you were not
And
as much in the mind, probably.
that's right. That's right. Yeah. And you know, kids are good at that. Kids will expedite your healing. Like if anything's going to expedite anyone's healing, it's like becoming a parent, you know? Because they are a mirror. They show you yourself, right? Like they don't I mean whatever behaviors you're doing, like if I'm dysregulated, my daughter is dysregulated, right?
Completely,
So
yeah.
it's like she shows me myself, you know? And it's great and also hard, but it's like I get it. So I have to make sure I'm really grounded and present with her because she then will have a better day, a better afternoon, and she gets that co-regulation that she needs from me. And yeah.
So yeah, like regarding the daily practices, so yeah, you orient more to your inner environment and external environments. But like, yeah, how did you work with your trauma?
Um, so I do a mix of releasing. So basically, I moved to SBSM, you know that, right? And then I work one on one with a somatic coach as well. I mean, I've worked with my trauma in many different ways.
That's interesting.
A lot of, yeah, like a lot of releasing. So I follow my body impulses, right? Like when something comes up and something wants to move through me and I need to process something, I allow my body to go through whatever process that is. I don't do this in front of my kids, but when they're with their dad, I actually do most of my processing of whatever might be coming up. The core abuse stuff that happened when I was really young. Um, I actually think I have processed most of that. Maybe not all of it, but most of it. And a lot of it came out in energy sessions and shamanic stuff that I've done, actually. So shamanic work and working with the body and releasing trauma are like I find it to be very similar. Like we're calling it different things, but the body actually, if you can be with the sensation of something that's moving through the body, because it was a lot of womb work that I did for that early stuff. And I could actually feel it's like almost like knots, right? It was like almost like tension in my body, like
Yeah,
tightness.
yeah.
So I still have a tendency to clench my abdomen and my sacral, you know? But now that I'm aware of it, I can soften it, right? When I think about it. But in those beginning years when I was really trying to process this stuff out, I had to be obviously aware of it more. And I went through phases where I would work with the energy of I'm an energy worker. I've been like doing this for lifetimes. So a lot of it was intuitive. A lot of it was stuff I learned from Irene. And a lot of it was stuff I learned from my healer, Janet. And so I've done like a combination of those things. And that's what I do in my quantum sessions too, is I work with the body, I work with spirit and my spirit team, and I work with visualizations and actually, almost like, I can visualize what it feels like, what it looks like. If there's like a ball of energy that needs to be moved, let's just say, and I can try to move it out of my body and move my
Yeah.
body in a certain way to sort of release it. Does that make sense? I
Yeah,
hope
it
that,
makes
I don't
sense,
know.
and that's why, like, it's very important to try some new activities, some new path, because like if you just like stay to just one path, like maybe you will I don't know, you will not heal. Like, I think that's really important because, like, you show us that, yeah, you tried spiritual stuff, like biologic, system nervous, and quantum stuff. Like, it's a mix of everything. And I think, like, it's really important because we are all different again. But one thing that is, I think, like, common, I would say it's becoming familiar and not being resistance of the sensations, regarding the emotions, because the emotions like appear like with sensations in the body, and I'm sure you were like that. You were completely like repressing those emotions and sensations because sensations and emotions can be very like impressive. Like sensations can be a bit tough, but I think like for me, for example, and you will say if it's the same for you, like becoming aware of my sensations and like allowing them to be and just like feeling them fully without resistance, like that
Mhm.
really changed my life because I was no longer in resistance. I was just welcoming the sensation. It was getting higher. Sometimes it was really intense, like for example in my belly, like I was on my chest, it was really tight, very sometimes a bit acid, like fire, that kind of sensation. And then it is transmuted, and then I feel completely flexed, completely free. And so yeah, of course, like I
Yeah.
have to do that regularly, like on a daily basis. But that's what changed my life and calmed my system, my nervous system. And I would say probably the same for you, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, there was components of all of it. But that was a huge piece of it. And I'm still working with activation. Like
Yeah.
now I've been working with my face a lot, right? Noticing how much tension I still hold in my face, noticing how much tension I hold in my eyebrows and my jaws, right? Noticing how much anger and things like that are held in those facial muscles. And lately I've been working with a lot of that. In the beginning of my healing, it was like, oh my God, I need to heal my chronic fatigue. It was like all freeze stuff, and then once a big portion of that freeze lifted, all of that activation is like under there. And it's like, that's where all of our stuff is. Like our
Yes.
stuff is,
G-
and
yeah.
that actually was harder. I did not know that was going to be harder. And I
Yeah, I
was
think
like,
that's really
really.
important for those who don't know that because yeah, of course, like there are different states in the nervous system, and you got fight or flight, but you got also freeze, which is immobility, and I think yeah, like people got to understand that underneath, like you said, the freeze, there are a lot of activation and fight or flights. Like freeze is like the top of the worst thing, in a way,
Yeah.
and then you got the mobilization, all the stress, all the agitation and everything. So when you work on yourself and then yeah, like you work on the free stuff, it's becoming like clearer and clearer. Then you got to deal with the mobility and the agitation and yeah, the fight and fight. And not a lot of person
Yeah.
know that. I really agree with you. I didn't know that
Oh,
either.
yeah, I didn't either. And I thought I was going backwards. I was like,
Yeah,
wait, why? I just released all this stuff and I don't have fatigue anymore. I don't have body pain anymore. I mean, like literally, I do not have, knock on wood, I do not have these things. They do not exist within me anymore. They are gone. And by the way, I do want to make sure I say that my tests no longer show that I have lupus. Like all of those levels are normal now. So
that's
like this
fantastic.
is a big, yes, this is a big deal. um, but then when I moved all of that big stuff, I would say lupus really was in that freeze stuff. It was like right, like it was like trapped in like all that
Mm.
part, those layers, those like layers. And I was really fortunate. I think I was so ready to heal when I first started doing Irene's work and this nervous system work that 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 like sort of surface big chunk sort of lifted pretty quite quickly for me. But then what was under that, I was like not prepared for. I was like, whoa, all of my feelings came back because
Exactly.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
freeze is like numbing it, right? The freeze is like putting this like band-aid. It's almost like a medication.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like that resource of like numbing it out. And so we can't feel anymore. But the thing is like I also couldn't feel joy. I also couldn't feel compassion. I also couldn't cry for years.
Yeah.
I couldn't. So then when all that freeze was gone, I was like overwhelmed with how much emotion I had. and I'm still moving through layers of that right
Yeah, I
now.
think
I
it's a
just,
it's a life path. It's a life journey. And yeah, like of
yeah,
course, like so many emotions that come up, like they don't go
yeah,
anywhere, they stay in your body. Like don't forget that, my listeners.
yeah. But what's incredible is like today I was going for a run and I have run by this tree probably hundreds of times. But I looked up at this gorgeous tree and I noticed like all the branches and all the different colors and all of the things that were like, I could almost feel the presence of the energy of the tree and all of the living things, the little insects, the squirrels, the things that were like all, existing in this tree. And I was so overwhelmed with joy that I, almost a tears were coming to my eyes.
Hmm.
And like those are pieces that I missed for 40 years of my life, right? Like,
No,
for the most part.
it's really funny that you're saying that because that's what I was writing, I think, today on Instagram. Like I was saying before, like when like for 20 life, so I had like a lot of problems with food, anorexia
Yeah.
and like dysmorphophobia and everything. And so when I was, for example, in vacation and I was I don't know, walking in the mountains or around the sea, I was always trying to like lose pounds and everything. I was absolutely not focused on the beauty of the nature. Like I didn't care at all. I just wanted to lose weight.
I
And
know.
now completely the opposite. And it's funny that you're talking about a tree because right now, like since 2 weeks, I want to and I'm going to hug trees. Like
Yeah.
I thought it was fucking weird when I was saying people, seeing people. And now I just feel completely attracted by the energy of the trees, and I do that, and I don't fucking care anyway about what people think. But
Right.
that shows like how much like dysregulated and disconnected we were together. That we were completely disconnected of our own environment, both internal and external, and so. That's why it's so beautiful to heal because you open to a lot of simple, beautiful, natural things.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I know. It's incredible to think that we missed it for so long, right? And that, not to say anything bad about that, right? It's just the process that we had to go through. But it's just amazing, and it puts into perspective too how many people are still, living that way, right? Like
And more and
most
more.
people,
Yeah.
yeah, and more and more, yeah, I
I'm
know.
just
And
checking
that,
my how many space I have, so don't worry if you see me like that because I just want to be sure. Ah, okay, see.
okay.
Okay. Yeah. So sorry I cut you. I interrupted you.
That's okay. No, I was just gonna say, um, and that brings me back around to like parenting, because in those early years of my kid's life, I didn't have that compassion part. Like I couldn't feel that. It was almost like my empathy and my sympathy, was not online. And, I was tough on them. It was like I was really tough. And now it's like it's all compassion. Like
Mm.
that's how I parent. It's all compassion led. And it's unbelievable to see how they have healed,
Mhm.
like through my healing, like they're healing their own trauma, as
Completely.
well. And oh my God, it's a ripple effect. My relationship with my father has changed, which is incredible. My relationship with my ex, my kid's father, has changed. I called in a amazing partner who is also doing this work, and I'm in a relationship and a partnership like I've never been in before, because I don't know that I knew how to. Sounds weird because it seems like it should be a natural human. um I mean, it is our human right to love, right? But when we are so traumatized, we can't access that love. It's like there's so much fear around the
Yeah, it's not
love.
pure.
It's not pure, and so it's scary, and so there's all this anxious attachment and all these things that
Oh
we
yeah.
like, and we push people away, and we create this storm because like that's what we've always known. And so yeah, and so now I have this beautiful relationship with this amazing man. And yeah, I mean, it's incredible, really.
Yeah, let's talk a bit about like your children because of course like there is a before and after, and you talked a bit about that. But how was it to like to be pregnant with your symptoms and to also to just be a new mom with your symptoms? It must have been horrible because I had like for example a friend today, and she just got she just like how do you say like had a baby, and like it's right now it's really really complicated, but she's quite in good health, you know. So like when you are like in
Yeah.
pain, you're like struggling, maybe there was the hormones a bit helping, I don't know, but tell us a bit about that, like how was it?
Oh God, it was so hard. I honestly like I really don't know. I mean, this is a really truthful statement. Like I do not know how I got through it. I really don't know how I got through it. Like those first few years with both my kids were the hardest years of my life, you know?
Yeah.
And that's saying a lot because I had a lot of trauma. I mean, I don't know. I guess how do you compare, right? It's different. But I'll say in terms of my health, they were the hardest because my health really declined. And first of all, my son, I had a very traumatic delivery process with him because I was trying to have, I don't know if you guys know what a VBAC is, a vaginal birth after a C-section. So I had to have a C-section with my daughter. She was my first.
Okay.
But then with my son, I tried to go natural.
Because you
And
can't when you already have like the C.
well, you can. You can.
Okay.
But some doctors say it's really dangerous, and more holistic people say it's not, right? So um, I tried to do, it's called a VBAC. And a lot of allopathic doctors will do them, but they look for red flags, right? They're checking your levels, they're making sure you're okay. I was seemingly fine. But I ended up in labor with my son for 3 days, and I pushed for like hours and hours, and we ended up in an emergency C-section. I just couldn't get him out. He was, I don't know. I think it had a lot to do with my trauma that already existed in my womb. I was just so
Braced. Yeah.
braced, so braced.
Yeah. Makes
And
sense.
I couldn't he wouldn't drop down, basically. And I think that had to do with my body, right? Like
Yeah, completely.
holding on tight. And anyway, so after I think what happened, I mean, who knows, all the things were compiling at that point. But after I had him, I just my health declined so much, and I really it was weeks and weeks of just not being able to get out of bed. And like I said, I think I told you all of those neurological symptoms started, the memory, the tingling, my body was like, I mean, I was not attached to my body, because if I felt everything that was happening, I mean, and I already was having panic attacks and stuff. I was not sleeping. And my poor kids, those early years were rough. I mean, and it's no wonder why my husband and I didn't make it. Now, I mean, I can laugh about it. We have a great relationship and we are not meant to be together. And so it's fine. But it was a rough few years, really, really hard physically, really hard mentally, really hard emotionally.
With the fatigue and
I
everything.
Yeah, like I didn't have the regulation to be a mother, to be present with my kids. I was obsessed with breastfeeding with my son. I was obsessed with health at that point.
Mm.
But then I went almost too far, right? Like I pumped for 10 months because he couldn't latch. That was like a whole thing. I was doing extreme things that was actually messing with my nervous system even more.
Yeah, yeah.
I sent us through GAPS as a whole family, which I don't know if you know what GAPS is, but it's basically like a ketogenics diet. My daughter was having some health issues. Now I think her health issues were connected to my nervous system stuff. It was a shitstorm. Excuse my language, but it was it was a mess.
You
I
can
don't
say
know
that.
how.
It was a fucking shitstorm.
It was a fucking
Yeah.
shitstorm.
And
Yeah,
it's often the case. Sorry, like just a little bit like when you discover some healing path, so it's always like often at least like regarding nutrition, and so you want to go like 100%, you
Yeah.
know, and it's too extreme, like an extreme don't doesn't work for the health. But I know what you mean because I was into this too, like very tight.
Yeah.
Did yeah.
Yeah. I had, by the way, I can relate to the eating disorder stuff because I had a lot of that as well, intertwined in there.
Between my sheets.
Yeah. Oh, I was always so obsessed with my weight and how I looked and all the things.
Yeah.
But yeah, now when I work with people and, when people say to me, I want to go extreme detox. Hold on, I got to plug in my computer because
Yeah,
my
yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
about to die. Hold on a second. There we go. So yeah, when people say to me, I want to do a cleanse or I want to do it, I can tell most immediately it's nervous system, right? When they want those extreme protocols and they want to do something really fast and really hard and really intense, and they want to do, they're talking about water fasts and ayahuasca and all
Yeah.
this crazy stuff. I'm like, it's nervous system, right? Because those are,
It's fear based, so it's nervous system dysregulation. Yeah, completely.
yeah,
Yeah, that's great because
totally.
now you know, you understand that,
That
and you
I
can say,
know.
no, don't go this way.
You gotta slow down, right? People have to slow down and feel into what's happening. We adopt. It's a beautiful thing that everybody is going through this spiritual awakening. I really think like the planet is going through major shifts and changes, and it's awesome. I know my dog.
Yeah, I have a little dog. It's a little one, so usually it's very high pitch, contrary to yours.
And you can always hear, like, whenever I do videos or anything, you can hear her little feet like
Yeah,
stepping
yeah,
on
with the
the
nails.
floor behind me, going back and forth. Maggie, come here. Maggie, come here. Anyway,
And you know what? Like I was wondering, like, how is your relationship with your children now? Because you told us, like, of course, like, it's different, and the health of your girl, for example, is better. But you have also more compassion because I'm sure you have like better compassion towards yourself. But yeah, like, how is it now? Like, it shifted so much.
yeah, it's shifted a lot. Now, first of all, I create space for them. And kids, honestly, here's the thing. When we complicate parenting, when parenting feels really, really, really hard, we're dysregulated. You know what I mean? Because actually, if we're regulated,
Yeah,
parenting is actually quite simple. Like
yeah,
they don't need much.
yeah,
And I will say, it's different at certain ages. Now my kids are 7 and 10, right? So they're getting dressed on their own. They're feeding themselves. I mean, not feeding themselves. I still cook for them or whatever. But they're literally feeding themselves. They're doing a lot on their own. They're more independent. However, really, parenting should be simple. They need to be in nature. They need your attention. They need you for at those young years. They need those basic needs met, but they're still quite basic, right?
yeah,
And they need to be held, right? They need love. Like it's just like a plant, an animal. I mean, of course, there's a lot of more nuanced, and it's a bigger
yeah,
it's a bigger deal for children, obviously, but it's it's the same principles of growing anything,
yeah.
and then when they get into those later years and they start asking these questions, they start asking these just questions where like their little brains are working and they're figuring things out and they're wanting to know about the world and they're wanting to know about, now they're really curious about my work. They were wondering what I do and who did I see and all these things. And my daughter wants me to go and teach a nervous system class at her
Ah,
school. She just
oh,
asked
so
me to do
love
nervous.
it.
school with her kids. Yeah, so like, those things happen and they're amazing. And again, now that I'm regulated, I know how to weave those things into my schedule, and it's not hard. But when you're dysregulated, it is so incredibly overwhelming. So, I mean, this is just to say, like, not to like keep going down this same sort of theme, but it really does matter how your nervous system, like what kind of state your nervous system is in.
Yeah.
I tell all of my friends, I have a lot of friends who are younger, who are in their 30s, and they're wanting to get pregnant, and I'm like, do nervous system work. They're saying like, oh, I want to get pregnant next year or whenever. I'm like, spend the year doing consistent nervous system work.
Yeah.
It's the best thing you can do for your baby.
Yeah.
Because when the baby comes and you're up all night every night, and you're sleep deprived, and your schedule's off, and it's all the things that will test your regulation. Like
Completely.
all the things. So if you don't have some foundational tools on board already, then you're just going to go into a tailspin of overwhelm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we don't want to exist in overwhelm when we have a baby, right? Because we will miss those. That's the thing with kids. Like, once that age has passed, that baby passed, the toddler stage has passed, that 4-year-old, the 5-year-old, once it's done, it's done. We don't get it back, And it's like, if we're regulated, we can really appreciate that time so much and be present. There's not a lot of time that I had when my kids were little that I remember full presence,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I
It
know.
was like very few and far between. But
But
I'm here
better late
now,
than
and
never.
I'm, yeah, exactly.
No, really, like because like you
Yeah.
can see like already that they have changed because you did your work. So, and also for my listeners, a good way to know if you're like dysregulated, just see how much like you're triggered. That will show lots. Like,
How many triggers you exactly. That's
yeah,
exactly it. Totally.
yeah,
I mean, I think everyone is dysregulated,
yeah.
really,
I think
unless
so.
they've been doing this work, you know what I mean? Unless they've been doing this work for like years and years.
Yeah,
And not to like scare anybody off, right? I healed very quickly that big chunk I was talking about, which, even though I'm still not fully regulated, right? Each time, each layer has healed another part of me, another part of my symptoms, another has gotten me closer to the core authentic person that I am, that I want to be. And so each layer matters, even though it might take years to get to regulation, it's still, each part is important.
yeah, completely. And also, I want to talk about that like often we spend years of therapy trying to understand and remember some deep traumas, but
Yeah.
sometimes we just can't remember, and it's okay because you can do your work, you can release the densities inside of it. You don't have to necessarily and all the time like try to remember, because sometimes you can't. And if you focus
Yeah.
also on your body, on your somatic work, sometimes you can also like I don't know, like those memories can come back or not, but it's not always necessary to remember for us to heal.
No, no. I think that if you remember, you're supposed to remember. If you don't remember, then you're not supposed to remember,
Yeah.
right? If you like get really good at feeling, then you know where something is being held. I mean, I have released a ton of stuff that I don't always know what it is, right?
For
Or
me,
what
like
it's
most of
related
the
to.
time, completely, like I don't
Yeah.
have a lot of memories for deep traumas. I just feel. It's just about feelings for me. Like most of the times, I don't have like, for example, some students of the nervous system. They oh, I remember this now and I remember this. For me, it's not how it works. Like it's really about somatic and sensations. But it's okay. Everyone is different.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, sometimes what I think is really cool is sometimes we can release something and it can be attached to a lot of different traumas,
Yeah.
right? Like I was just processing through a few weeks ago. I was not sleeping well, and I was up in the middle of the night. I knew I was having that activation in my body, and I was like, I need to move my body. Like my body really needs to move. But I laid down and I was like, let me put on a neurosensory exercise and just kind of see what happens. And sure enough, my body started to move, my body started to shake, and my legs started running, kept going for like 20 minutes. It's like my body did not want to stop. And there was so much energy in my system that wanted to come out. And what I kept remembering is all the times growing up in my house that I wanted to run away. But it was like I was remembering certain times as like a teenager. But the truth is that flight response and that feeling of like not being safe was years and years in my house, you know. Again, not to like not my parents did the best they could. But I think a lot of kids feel this way, right? A lot of kids grew up like wanting to run away from home. And that's like not and that unique of a story. And but I just thought I am not just releasing one time that I wanted to run away from home. I'm releasing a lot of times. I mean, years and years of that flight response that was never able to be played out. And it was like, and I knew what it was, but it's not like I went through the memory of every single time, right?
You
I
just
don't
knew.
know what that would be. I just knew.
And
Yeah.
out of curiosity, which exercise was it?
I did it. Well, I didn't technically do the exercise. I put it on. It was dropping in.
Okay.
I put it on and I listened to I was able to sort of drop my body those first, few minutes. And then my body just started to do its thing. And at that point, I wasn't following them,
Okay, yeah, I
you know.
understand. Yeah, okay. And you also insist on not thinking that your body is against you. And I really do agree with you because, especially because when we suffer, we think it's the fault of our body, but the body is trying so bad to help us. Like the symptoms are not
Yeah.
the enemy. And I think that's really important for us to be able to heal.
Yeah, they are the symptoms are the portal. I like to use that word a lot because there's gateways to our healing, and our body is always giving us signals like there's always these red flags, telling us there's something's going on, right? Something's up, something's, for lack of a better word, wrong, or something's gone awry and this needs our attention. The problem is we're in a society where we're like kind of taught not to go inward. We're sort of trained or programmed to look to outside people,
Yeah.
right? To like tell us what's wrong or like tell us what we are supposed to do next or like tell us. But really, everything exists within the body, and it starts with the symptom. You know what I mean? It's like if I was to tell a story about if I, just even today, as I told the story, it started with my symptoms, right?
Yeah.
Like my whole, everything that has happened and all of my healing that has taken place, it wouldn't have taken place if I didn't get in touch with the symptoms I was having in my body, like, right?
Yeah.
And they were the ones that guided me, really. That
It,
was what, and when I was able to actually feel my symptoms deeper, you first of all, you release fear around how the body actually feels, right? You start trusting that even though the feeling is uncomfortable, it's there, it's trying to do something. And then you actually open up the access to move it greater, right? Because until we feel it, we can't move it, right? So
exactly.
it's
Yeah.
like really necessary to be able to feel
You got to feel
that
it to
those,
release it.
yeah.
Yeah. Those are messages. I'm I completely agree with you. And so are
Yeah.
emotions. And what is so important to learn is to deal with our own emotions. And you actually had your worst flare up when you were going through a divorce and some challenging emotional time, right?
You really did your homework,
Yes, I
Lena.
did.
I was going to say this earlier because when I was talking about, yeah, when I started having the memories, it was the same time that I had those dreams and I was praying, I was telling you guys I was praying and I was asking for things and answers. I had just divorced or left my ex and, uprooted my kids. And so it was already like a very challenging time that I was going through. And I found out something about my ex, and it sparked like, so it was like that was sort of the trigger, I'll call it. But like it sparked all the abandonment, all the attachment stuff, all of the things that others, the other traumas that were going on. But that was like, it was like, if that hadn't happened, I just think that the process of releasing all that other stuff that was under that would have taken a lot longer. Like I actually needed that to happen with him. It basically, I got my heart broken, like broken, seriously, more than maybe ever in my life. And it triggered all my other heartbreaks, since I was probably a baby, right? And so all my heartbreaks came up. And the stories that came up of unworthiness and not being lovable and not being good enough and not being, there was so much tied into that story. And I was out I was non-functional for weeks. It may have been close to a month. I was like, he actually had to come and get my kids because I couldn't take care of them. And there was one time when I got up from the couch to do something in the kitchen. I don't remember what, like get a glass of water, like get something to eat or something. And something happened in the kitchen where I just broke down. My leg pain particularly was incredibly bad for me when I was having flares. And my legs gave out and I was on the kitchen floor and my ex was coming. I got my kids to give me my phone and I called him and I was like, you got to take the kids. And he got here and he had to help me to the couch, back to the couch. I couldn't use my legs were not like functional. Like it was very scary. And it was one of those flares where like you don't think it's ever going to end.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're like, is this it? Like who's going to take care? Oh, I can't tell you how many times I was like, who's going to care for my kids when I'm not able to take care of them anymore? Like I thought 45 was it. 45, if I'm not figured this out by the time I'm 45, then I have got to figure out who is going to be my kid's mother, And that is a very scary place to exist in,
Yeah, it seems so long.
But here I am. I'm 45.
And how do you deal with your emotions now?
What?
How do you deal with your emotions now?
Oh, I cry, but it's not like that. I don't have those, like, I don't have the pain anymore. All that's gone. And I don't have the stories. So the stories, the victimization and the unworthiness and all of the self-shame and all that's that stuff just, it takes what already exists and just, it creates a spiral, right? That's just like,
yeah.
So I don't have body pain, I don't have chronic fatigue, and I don't have those running stories anymore. So without all of those things on board, if I have something big that I'm processing, I cry. I might spend an afternoon or a day, even maybe a Sunday or something, like, on the couch or having to work through some things where my body might feel heavy, right? But it's not like full shutdown. It's like I can still get up and walk my dog. I can still take care of my kids. I can still do everything I need to do. But in between those times, I'm finding moments for rest. I'm aware I'm going through a process. I'm aware of what my process. I just went through something. This is a good example. I went through something with some friends like about 6 weeks ago. And there was a misunderstanding. There was some abandonment stuff that came up. And I went through these waves of like feeling really sad, right? And feeling really like some heartbreak came up and some tenderness came up and some cries came out. But I didn't there wasn't a day I processed it, but there wasn't a day that went by that I was like completely dead to the world and
Yeah.
gone that from functionality. You know what I mean? I was still able to get
Yeah,
up. I
because
was still able to
you don't
feed
work with
myself.
fear anymore. You know how it works. You know that it's just the emotions, and so the thoughts, like, you don't have to listen to the thoughts when you're triggered and you're in those densities. Yeah, so you
Yeah.
become a bit like yeah, behind. Like yeah, I understand what you mean.
It's almost, yeah, it's almost like you watch it. You're like,
Yeah,
oh, this is
the
happening, right? You're
observer.
like, this
Yeah,
is very familiar. I know exactly
yeah,
what this is. I know it's passing through too.
yeah,
I've never a time anymore where I'm like, this is never gonna end. Like how
yeah,
I used to be. Like, oh my God, is this it? This is the end? Like I don't ever, that's never,
yeah.
ever in my, and so when we know it's just fleeting, it's just a process that I have to go through, then it makes it so much more manageable, and
Completely.
like all the tools that we have, right? The resourcing, maybe I need connection with my boyfriend more tonight, maybe I need a longer walk with my dog, maybe I need to sit outside, maybe all these tools that we have now are really helpful
Yeah,
too.
yeah. But yeah, I really agree with you. Like becoming the observer of the thoughts, like for me, that was life changing because I didn't have to believe in those thoughts anymore. Like it was, I was detaching myself from those, and
Yeah.
that's so less suffering than before. So yeah, I
Yeah.
do really believe
Yeah.
like we are the sun, and there are some clouds passing by, and the sun is gonna come back. And I think yeah, that's
Yeah.
really necessary. Yeah,
Yeah. Exactly.
yeah,
I mean, the thing is no matter how much healing work we've done, like no one is exempt from experiencing pain in this life,
yeah,
right? I mean,
completely.
we're all going to be, that's why we're here, really, is because it's through the pain of the physical body that helps our soul um, evolve. Like if we didn't come here to do some level of healing work, then we would still be chilling in the spirit world. You know what I mean? We would not have taken human form.
Yeah,
So like it's the pain part of our process is necessary. And that's why I think it's so important that we feel those things that come up, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, completely. What is necessary for you to do in the daily life for your system to feel soothed and balanced?
Ugh. Um, I mean, I eat warm, nourishing foods. I love that. I I walk outside. I mean, it's so beautiful here now, right now.
In
That
Atlanta?
I'm,
You live
I'm
in
like
Atlanta? Yeah.
Atlanta, yeah. It's like 75, 80 degrees and it's like bright sunshine and so I'll spend a lot of time outside. I mean, kind of similar answer to what I gave you before.
Mm.
I look at the trees. I'm take the time to like ground my body to the earth and um I have really sweet moments with my kids. I have sweet moments with my partner and I do like to geek out on like some TV shows every once in a while. Like right now I'm
Yeah.
into Yellowstone. Have you ever seen that show Yellowstone?
No, what is it?
Like it's about Yellowstone National Park. It's about this guy who owns like the most amount of land on Yellow. It's not true, but it's Kevin Costner.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Even as an older man, he's so
Yeah.
charming. Anyway, it's all about it's about basically like cowboys. I mean,
Mm.
essentially, cowboys and Indians, really. But it's a really, really good show. Anyway, so I have my times where I'm like just vegging out, watching my shows.
Yeah, but you're all aware and you're connected to what you're doing, and that makes a massive difference, I think.
Different. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not detaching from the whole world, right?
exactly.
I'm
Yeah.
just having some moments of peace and joy and,
Mm.
maybe
Yeah.
there's a little bit of tuning out, but it's not that like heavy stuff,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah,
And then
because
I have
you
a,
you
go ahead.
emptied your glass, you know, you emptied your glass of densities, and
That's
so
right.
now it's not the same. You don't see the world as before. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, last question for people who are suffering from lupus and have given hope, what would you like to tell them?
Um, I want everyone to know that healing is possible. Like people are turning autoimmune around every day. And, you know, it can be long and an intense healing road, but everything you do is moving the needle, right? Every diet shift, every you're learning, right? Even if it's not the one thing that like is turning it around in a moment, it's still changing your biology, right? It's still having an effect on you. And if it's just in the quantum field, every time you sit down to try to be quiet in either a meditation or a nervous system practice, or every time you connect in, you are telling your body that healing is possible, right? You're opening up a doorway of possibility for your healing. And even if you aren't sure if that's happening, like I want everybody to know like that is happening, every time that you are taking those steps, you're reaffirming to your body that you're taking care of her. And that is creating a environment that your body can heal
Mm.
in. And also, like, if healing is really hard, and even getting out of bed is really hard, and even functioning to do any kind of work is really, really, really hard, my suggestion always is to just take it slow. Make yourself a list and make it small and make it realistic and doable. And just, if it's, I'm going to get 5 minutes of sunlight on my face today, and that's all you can do, and that's all you can start with, then just start there and do that one piece, and do
Mm.
that consistently if you can. If it's, I'm going to drink 60 ounces of water today, or whatever, and that's all you can do, then you drink your water, you try to get your hydration in, whatever it is, those tiny little steps, if we can build on those, they really make a huge difference.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean. So thank you. And Selden, where can we find you? Because you gave us your YouTube, Instagram accounts, but like, do you have a website?
Yeah, so my website is Selden Integrative Healing, Selden, integrative, Integrative, healing.com. I do quantum sessions and I do one-on-one coaching. And yeah, every once in a while I do some programs. I just ran a program actually that just ended, and I might do something else. So I do some master classes. I do, some free master classes, some free trainings and things like that. So definitely there is a link on my website to for a free adrenal reset meditation. And if you click on that, you're in my mailing list. And so you can stay connected to me when I'm doing through that as well. But I'm very, very active on my Instagram page, and that's Selden_Beylouni. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Selden.
Thank you, Lena.